Nobody expected Martell and Harper to end up in a silent war, least of all Melody. What started as mutual respect between two successful men quickly turned into a bubbling mess of ego, competition, and miscommunication that would pull everyone into its orbit. On surface, Martell and Hill looked like they were on the same team, both charismatic, ambitious, and publicly aligned on several projects. They shared stages, exchanged praise, and showed up at the same elite events. Behind the scenes, there was friction brewing, real friction, and it wasn't about money or status. It was about influence. Martell's energy, loud, bold, unapologetic. He walks into a room and you know he's there. Harper, on the other hand, plays it cool, calm, calculated. Always choosing his words like he's writing another best-selling book. So when these two personalities clashed, it wasn't in some dramatic explosion. It was slow, passive, and that's what made it so dangerous. Nobody saw it coming. It's the turning point. Melody. Melody had always been respected in their circle, not just for her looks or presence, but for how she handled herself. Smart, collected, and never messy. She knew both men personally, had shared professional spaces with them, and was close enough to each to be trusted. That's where the problem started. When you're close to two powerful men who both feel the need to control the narrative, being in the middle isn't just uncomfortable, it's explosive. It started with whispers, Martell asking Melody casual questions like, "So you and Hill talk often?" Or "What does he think about our project?" At first it felt harmless, just curiosity. But then those questions became more frequent, more loaded. Hill wasn't any better. Keep throwing lines like Martell's energy doesn't really fit this kind of conversation. Or do you think he's really ready for something this big? Subtle digs hidden behind polished words. Melody felt it early. That weird pressure building like a storm you know is coming, even though the sky is still blue. She tried to ignore it, kept telling herself, "They're grown men. This isn't my business." But when you're the common thread holding two people together, the tension finds you. And then came the event. It was meant to be a simple private gathering. Business owners, creators, and a few influencers gathered in a swanky, dimly lit lounge to network and vibe. Martell and Hill both showed up looking clean, smiling for pictures, doing the usual fake handshake routine. But the energy off. Very off, according to multiple people in the room. It started with a look. Just a look. Martell locked eyes with Hill after hearing something he didn't like. Probably a remark Hill made about leadership in a group conversation. Nothing wild, but Martell took it personal. He walked over and within seconds, voices rose. Not yelling, but sharp, direct, controlled. Anger that everyone around could feel. Melody, caught in the middle once again, tried to mediate. She placed a hand on Martell's arm, tried to de-escalate without making it obvious, but the damage was already done. The vibe shifted, people stopped talking. Phones stayed down out of respect or fear of being dragged into something way deeper. That night changed everything. What had been a quiet tension was now open and real after that. The divide wasn't just between Martell and Hill. It started affecting their circles too. Mutual friends started choosing sides. Collaborations got canceled. Invitations stopped going out. The quiet war had gone public and Melody was stuck in the crossfire, and she still had no idea how bad it was about to get. The fallout didn't waste time. Just days after the event, the gossip mill kicked into overdrive. Group chats lit up. DMs, TARTED. Flying. Everyone who had been in that lounge had their own version of the story, and somehow every version made it worse. Martell's people said Hill had been throwing shade for weeks, questioning Martell's credentials behind his back. Hill's people claimed Martell was being reckless and emotional, dragging personal drama into professional spaces. And Melody, she became the accidental centerpiece of it all. People started speculating, was there more between her and one of them? Was she playing both sides? Was she the reason for the tension? None of it was true, but the narrative was already writing itself. She'd gone from respected collaborator to Wispalda problem in a matter of days. All because two grown men couldn't handle their pride. Martell, already feeling cornered, doubled down. He started posting cryptic messages on social media, things like, "Loyalty should never be questioned, but sometimes silence says it all, and fake smiles don't hide real intentions." He didn't tag anyone, but everyone knew who he was talking about. Hill Harper, being the more strategic one, took a different route. No public posts, no tweets, just a carefully timed podcast appearance, where he talked about the importance of authenticity in relationships and how ego often destroys what respect builds. He was calm, polished, but sharp enough to cut. Behind the scenes, Melody was unraveling. Her phone wouldn't stop ringing, friends asking for the tea, colleagues wondering where she stood. Even Brand started hesitating, afraid of being associated. With whatever mess was unfolding, she tried to keep her head down, but there was one moment she couldn't shake. She was at home scrolling through her messages when she found one from a mutual friend. Screenshot of a group chat she wasn't in. Martell had apparently said, "Melody's playing both of us and I'm done protecting her." Her stomach dropped. Not because she was scared, but because she realized something had shifted. This wasn't about rivalry anymore. It was about betrayal, or at least the illusion of it. The irony, Melody had never betrayed either of them. If anything, she'd been protecting them from each other, keeping the peace, holding back details she easily could have used to defend herself. But none of that mattered now. Once people feel betrayed, facts become optional. And then came the secret. It wasn't something she meant to find, just an accidental discovery. A message left open on a shared device. A conversation she was never supposed to see. At first she thought it was nothing. It's just some casual back and forth between Hill and another mutual friend. But the deeper she read, the clearer it became. This wasn't casual, this was planned. The messages revealed something deeper than ego or miscommunication. They hinted at a business move Hill had made months ago. One that directly undermined a project Martell had been pitching to a major investor. Hill had beaten him to the punch, secured the deal quietly, never said a word. And the worst part, he used inside information that only a few people had access to. Melody froze. She remembered Martell venting about the lost deal, about how blindsided he felt. She remembered how Hill just nodded and played dumb. And now she knew the truth. This wasn't just personal anymore. It was calculated, cold. And if Martell ever found out what she had stumbled upon, the quiet war would turn into something a lot louder. It's the kind of loud that echoes for years. Melody sat with the truth for days. The screenshots, the messages, the proof. It all weighed on her like a brick. Telling Martell meant setting off a fire she couldn't control. Staying quiet meant protecting someone who had played both of them for fools. Either way, Stroy was in the middle of a storm with no safe exit. She finally made the decision one night after waking up from a dream that felt too real. In it, she watched Martell walk away without ever knowing the truth. Stigelt noted at her even in her sleep. So she picked up the phone and sent him a message, nothing dramatic, just a simple, "We need to talk in person." When Martell walked into the room, the tension was immediate. He didn't sit, didn't smile, just folded his arms and waited. Melody didn't waste time. She showed him everything. The messages, the dates, the names. And as he read, his expression didn't change, not at first. But then the silence turned sharp. His jaw tightened. His fingers curled slightly at the sides. He didn't say much, just nodded once and walked out. That was all it took. Within 24 hours, Martell went public. Not with names, but with a detailed timeline of the failed deal and a vague mention of someone close who manipulated the process. The post was long, emotional, and clearly directed at Hill Harper. He didn't nominate him, but everyone knew, especially Hill. What followed was chaos. Hill released a statement 2 days later, composed, dismissive, and full of deflection. He called Martell's claims wildly misinformed and urged his followers not to engage in drama rooted in emotion rather than facts. But Hill underestimated how. Fast truth spreads when it comes from someone who's been holding it in for too long. Fans started digging, matching timelines, pulling receipts. Screenshots surfaced, some from anonymous accounts, others from people who had clearly been holding on to their own stories. Slowly, Hill's polished image began to crack. Not completely destroyed, but the shine faded. Melody stayed quiet through it. Her role wasn't public knowledge, and she intended to keep it that way. But the emotional toll was brutal. Friends drifted, projects paused, and worst of all, she began questioning herself. Not for telling the truth, but for ever getting close to either of them in the first place. Ardell reached out one evening, weeks after everything went down. He didn't come with anger, just quiet honesty. He told her he wasn't mad. He was just tired. Tired of the games, the posturing, the need to always be 10 steps ahead. Melody listened, but she didn't say much back. She had nothing left to give. Not to him, not to Hill, not to the version of herself that tried so hard to fix everything.